Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. So first, I would like to start by thanking the CEREGE, its staff, and especially Anne Creux-Martelli and Barbara Bourlion, and also my colleague Thibaut Devièse, for inviting me to speak on such a special occasion. It is a great symposium. I am learning a lot. Again, thank you. As an almost typical boy born in Toulouse at the beginning of the 60s, I will pray you to apologize me for the poor quality of my English. As Thibaut said, I have a huge scientific interest for the Neanderthal and anatomically modern humans lineage and funerary activities of past population. And when I have read the symposium program, I have had at the beginning the terrible feeling that I would be the black sheep of all the speakers. But fortunately, Edouard Bard recalled at the beginning the results obtained by the CEREGE related to the antiquity of Paleoanthropus chadensis and also the absolute datation and the isotope analysis of the triple gravation burial of Dolní Věstonice II in Czech Republic. Speaking about exceptional hominid fossils, I want to tell you that Lucy, original skeleton, and Selam, original Australopithecus skeletons, are now welcome at Prague. It is the first time that they are in Europe, and they are a part of a temporary exhibit which will run until the end of October. So it is a magnificent opportunity to see these two unique skeletons at Prague, in Czech Republic. Today, I am mostly here as a paleoanthropology who directed two Middle Paleolithic field projects at Les Pradelles in Charente and Régourdou in Dordogne. Les Pradelles on the left and Régourdou on the right. There are two key sites that have held numerous and important Neanderthal fossils. You will see them. Related to these two Mousterian sites, what gave me perhaps also some legitimacy to present you today some of my idea, and they are only my idea, it is that I have also tried to build scientific collaboration with different geosciences colleagues, as Professor Rainer Grüm from Canberra and Brisbane, who have done the first map of the transition variability of France, with Dr. Eva Maria Gegel to try to get ancient DNA at the beginning of 2000s. Hervé Boschens on carbon and nitrogen isotopes, Aurélien Royer, Christelle Lahaye, Vincent Balter, Guillaume Guérin, and also Thibaut Devièse from your lab. With Thibaut, we have the project to directly date with the CEREGE C14 protocol, which is clearly the best for human fossils, which are around 40,000 years old. The Le Moustier II baby that you are able to see on the left, which is a unique perinate, one of the most complete Neanderthal skeleton, which could be also one of the latest Western Europe Neanderthal, and some of the newly discovered infracranial bones of the famous cave of Arcy-sur-Cure in Yonne, excavated by Professor André Leroy-Gourand during the 50s. The Grotte du Renne is one of these caves, and it is crucial for the understanding of the biological and cultural transition between Middle Paleolithic and Late Paleolithic times. So today, I will focus specifically on human remains from Paleolithic times and what we're able to do with them, taking into consideration the French Ministry of Culture reglementation. I will really insist on this. And also because I believe that some difficulties to sample human fossils we have in France are linked to the theoretical rarity of these fossils. This is true considering some specific Paleolithic sites or context, but it is wrong for others. Here is a view of a newspaper where it clearly claims that the discovery of a deciduous tooth is an extraordinary discovery in Charente. It was made in summer at Saint-Césaire, and Thibaut is also collaborating to the studies of this site. But, and because Pleistocene human fossils are considered very rare, they are treated in particular way by the French Ministry of Culture, which is the one which gives administrative authorization to excavate site and which controls the museum where prehistoric collections are stored. considering human remains, this leads to a particular constraint. I will come back to it. In this publication, you see only the curvature. There is a good illustration of this so-called rarity of Paleolithic human fossils. It is an important publication from what we call in France le Conseil national de la recherche archéologique, so the National Council for Archaeological Research, and this book has been published in 2016. It was meant to refresh the institutional perspective on archaeological researches. A policy remained untouched for years and years. Officially, and you are able to read it, the aim was to reflect the evolution of archaeological research practice and to highlight new directions the discipline should take. That is what the report clearly states. But when it comes to Paleolithic times, and it is the Acts 1 and the Acts 2 of this book, there is absolutely no mention of research focused on human fossils. And that is regardless of the hominid fossil species, where we are working on pre-Neanderthals, Neanderthals, Upper Paleolithic, anatomically modern humans. We must wait for chapter 4 of this publication, which focuses on Mesolithic, Neolithic, and Chalcolithic transition, to finally find funerary archaeology and bioanthropology mention a scientific axis as a major sources of information on topics like social complexity, cultural identity, symbolic system, health and diet, paleodemography, settlement system, kinship, and lineage structure and gender studies. So, are Paleolithic human fossils really rare or as rare as we are led to believe? Again, personally, I don't think so, and it could depend on different things. Let me give you two concrete examples. On the left, you see the well-known Neanderthal skeleton of Regurdu I, excavated in 1957 during a salvage or rescue operation at that time, and then the site was excavated between 1961 and 1964 during a program excavation led by Professor Eugène Bonifay. Perhaps some of you knew him. On the right, you see the condition of the skeleton after my team rechecked between 2013 and 2018 the final collection of the program excavation and looking for human remains. Many of them were mixed with brown bear bones and were taxonomically misidentified. And I think that you can see easily the differences with the preservation of the two skeletons. In fact, what is truly missing, especially in France, is the regular presence of paleoanthropologists on Paleolithic site excavation teams. Indeed, believe it or not, paleoanthropology is a unique scientific specialty which is not required to be part of a team applying for permission to excavate a Paleolithic site. Excavation techniques matter too. Beyond expertise, excavation techniques make also a big difference. What you see here is a collection of human remains from the site of Marillac-les-Pradelles in Charente. It has been excavated by my professor, Professor Bernard van der Merch, between 1967 and 1980. That is 14 years of field works. And you see that we have a nice collection of hominid remains. From 2001 to 2012, I have had the chance to be the director of a new excavation project, 11 field works, because we have done a stop during 1 year for the organization of a workshop. And here is what we have recorded during these 11 years considering hominid remains. When you compare the paleoanthropological material from both periods, it is very clear the collection don't look alike at all. We have found a much greater number of small fragments, including many from the infracranial skeleton. The differences between the two collections are related to the excavation techniques and the care taken during the study of the faunal remains, so the existence of a real interdisciplinary fieldwork scientific team. Indeed, Les Pradelles is truly a unique site in France, When we excavate some sedimentary facies, you don't see them, it is an horizontal view of the topo of the site. Each year, we were able to, for sure, to discover human remains. Why? Simply because the site show clear evidences of cannibalism. Some Neanderthals were preceded and consumed by their peers. As a result, human bones and teeth are scattered all across the site. In some cases, we find multiple human remains in just a single square meter and a small volume of excavated sediment. And you can see the concentration of the different discovery with all these symbols. This dispersal pattern was a chance and was requiring very detailed excavation and identification protocols. One of the most important, and it is for sure the most important, the most key factor to the success to discover hominid remains is how we train volunteer excavators, especially regarding human remains. Their ability to recognize such remains in situ during fieldworks could have a big impact on the quality of data we recover after. Now, coming back to the main theme of my talk, I will focus specifically on burials and the research conducted on them, particularly when it involves scientific communities like yours here at the CEREGE and paleoanthropologists. Why burials? Because they are often the best preserved and most informative collection of human fossil bones. They serve as the foundation for many of the scientific insights we develop as paleoanthropologists. What is even more remarkable is this. During the Middle Paleolithic, at a small portion of today's French territory, I mean the Région Nouvelle-Aquitaine, it has been discovered almost a quarter of all non-Neanderthal primary burial in Eurasia, 25%. In other words, Western continental Eurasia burial record is heavily concentrated in this French area. And yet, this fact remains largely unknown even among cultural prehistorians. Moving into the Upper Paleolithic, we have quite a similar concentration of primary burials. And in the early 2000 years, the Région Nouvelle-Aquitaine produced some of the most intriguing gravation burial sites, including the Grotte de Cussac in Dordogne and the Grotte du Visage in Charente. And I had, of course, this absolutely wonderful discovery which has been done not so far from Marseille during a salvage operation of the Institut National de la Recherche Archéologique Préventive at Cuges-les-Pins. This discovery of the Cussac caves, the cave of the face of la Grotte du Visage, have raised absolutely fascinating questions about burial practices, symbolic behaviors, and social complexity during that Upper Paleolithic culture. And as you can see, because the excavation of the epigravation burial of Cuges-les-Pins was done very recently, you have probably what is the best documented Upper Paleolithic burial ever excavated in France and in Western Eurasia. But if we look at what is actually being done on the skeleton from these primary burials, analysis of carbon and nitrogen, calcium, strontium isotopes, dental calculus, ancient DNAs from bone or teeth or sediments, or even direct absolute dating, the answer is, as you can see on this table, very little, almost nothing. This doesn't mean that no attempts were made, just that many analyses didn't produce usable data. Despite its incredibly rich paleoanthropological record, France is slowly becoming the less scientifically documented area in Western Europe. That is deeply concerning for the future of our discipline, for the training of our young researchers, and for our ability to contribute to international research agendas. It is very easy to see that it is not the case for other countries. And that is really a shame, because, for example, combining accurate direct dating of French fossils with results from ancient DNA, we could have very interesting insights, for example, into how reliable the molecular clock really is. It could be the same for absolute dating and isotope analysis. And if we take the example of the third cave of Goyer, excavating at the end of the 19th century in Belgium, recent researches on Neanderthal fossils from this site has been exemplary. We now have absolute dates, paleogenetic results, and detailed isotope data. It was a real model of what interdisciplinary collaboration can achieve. And we will see there is a manuscript which is right now, which it will be a very incredible manuscript considering the results. For other scientific reasons, I can also highlight the remarkable paleogenetic results obtained on several Neanderthal fossils from Shagirskaya cave in eastern Siberia in Russia. These studies reveal close kinship relationships among several individuals. This kind of data challenge a lot our understanding of Neanderthal social structure and must question us about what the collection of hominid remains from French Mousterian sites are representing, considering this point of social structuration. This lack of result is certainly sometimes, and at least in part, our responsibility as paleoanthropologists, and I include myself here. For example, regarding Regourdou 1's fossils, while calcium isotope results have been recently published, carbon and nitrogen isotopes were obtained for faunal remains, but not on the human fossils, and they are still not published. Ancient DNA didn't yield any result, and this fact has not been published also. Similarly, at Les Pradelles, carbon and nitrogen isotope analyses were conducted, but not published, as well as for strontium isotopes. Again, ancient DNA from human bones didn't produce results. So one idea that I would like to share with you today is the following one. Should we publish negative results? I mean, those analyses that, despite best scientific effort, best protocol, failed to produce expected data probably due to different reasons, and for human bones, preservation issue and taphonomic history need to, for sure, more experimental studies. But how do we, or can we publish negative results without the laboratory involved being perceived as incompetent or bad? One way forward might be to ensure that each sample collected on a bone or a tooth is used for multiple analyses and different labs, which could produce a joint interdisciplinary publication, including both positive and negative results. Of course, this requires the same schedule, shared interest, and a huge capacity of coordination and motivation from project leaders. For human remains, such a collective approach would allow us to present to the Ministry of Culture and Museum that house fossils a federated scientific proposal regarding sampling requests. In recent years, with advances in methodology, requests from sampling human bones or teeth have really exploded in France. But as human remains often lack clear heritage status following the 2016 French law on the freedom of creation, architecture, and heritage, many museums have set up their own scientific advisory boards, each with different rules, especially about what counts as a destructive analysis. For example, in a museum, to do a CT scan of hominid remains could be a destructive analysis. For another one, it is not. This makes sometimes the dialogue between scientists and collection creators almost absurd. In response to this increase in requests, the Ministry of Culture's Archaeology Subdirection has created a working group. And this group delivered its final report in May 2022 on protocol for sampling and analyzing human skeletal remains and on conserving collected samples. The recommendation mainly provide an administrative framework for requests submitted to various Ministry of Culture committees that evaluate field operations and now also human sampling requests. Depending on the timing of these committees and the uncertainty of their decisions, plus the evolution of governmental fundings of the French Ministry of Culture, this can make it very difficult to launch ambitious projects like the one related to ANR or ERC proposal. Recently, I have been fortunate to be invited by colleagues to contribute to to the updated version of the France National Scientific Research Programme published in 2023. Naturally, I made sure to emphasize the importance of conducting research on fossil human remains from Paleolithic sites, and specifically if such researches can only be done through destructive samples, and considering the fact that the volume of the material taken on the bone or the teeth today could be minimal and can benefit multiple scientific disciplines. Will it change something? I hope so. The future will tell us. Along this perspective, I believe it is scientifically very exciting to work on the emergence in France of a dedicated paleoproteomic research dynamics focused on studying ancient remains. At the University of Bordeaux, I am actively working to promote paleoproteomics through various scientific collaboration, particularly with Professor Caroline Tokarski, as you can see here, talking with two of the vice presidents of Bordeaux University and the head of the institute, the CNRS Institute of Chemistry. Caroline Tokarski led already a proteomic platform within the UMR CBMN, but it is involved in many biological and medicine studies. For paleoanthropologists, paleoproteomic allows us to determine what is human within collection of cinebone fragments, thousands of more found at Paleolithic sites, and you have an idea of what they look like. They include uncoordinated species, the ones that you have in this small box, and very small pieces related to the sieve reject, which has to be controlled. However, this requires that the spatial context of this type of material is well recorded to a specific volume of excavated place of the site, something this record is clearly dependent on the excavation director's sensitivity to this kind of object until now. And so, to return to the beginning of my talk, what is truly matter is the quality of the context in which the material is found, the quality of the primary field data. In the future, for such identified human remains, that we have theoretically less heritage value as they are reduced to a few cubic millimeters volume of bone, we can hope that a whole battery of destructive analysis could be more easily accepted by the French Minister of Culture. But because fundamentally, for museum, what matters is the heritage value of the object or the collection, the interest for this kind of material is supposed to be the same than the one related to well-coordinated pieces or beautiful objects. So nowadays, I don't know what it will happen with the new regulation related to the destructive analysis of this kind of material. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Bruno, for this very interesting talk. As we want in CEREGE study the evolution, the adaptation of human populations to climatic changes, we also need to study the human remains, obviously, in addition to everything that's done on the paleoenvironmental and paleoclimatic records. And I think you gave a very good presentation on, about the difficulty to access this material, but at the same time, how rich is our
exactly.
archaeological record in Europe, and hopefully this kind of presentations and communications, other way of communication will help to facilitate the study of this kind of material. Thank you very much.
I hope so.
And is there any question for Bruno? Olivia has one. I have plenty of questions. But
we have already started to discuss together during the 2 days, but we will continue.
Hi, thank you for this great talk. So you said that somehow 25% of burial of Neanderthal are in France.
In the southwest of France.
Southwest.
In Région Nouvelle-Aquitaine.
Even better.
Yeah.
So, and I also have the feeling that there are a lot of stuff happening during that period in Western Europe. Is this something that you would say is real, or is it a taphonomic thing? Is it just that we in Western Europe have been starting to study this kind of thing since a longer time, and so we have less record from Eastern Europe?
I don't think that it is a taphonomic question. I think that it is something which is related to there was something special in this part of Western Eurasia. Perhaps because it was the peninsula of the big Eurasia, and that you have a most important concentration of Neanderthal groups, perhaps also related to the fact that around 55,000 years old, there were also anatomically modern humans. We were arriving in Central Asia, and we were perhaps pushing Neanderthals in this extremity of their ancestral territory. But it is still a question for which we have no answer. Why do we have 25% of the Neanderthal burial on a very small territory? And if it is even worse, because if you take in the region Nouvelle-Aquitaine 2 territories where you have a lot of Mousterian sites where it has been discovered Neanderthal remains. So the Charente and the Dordogne. And on the 2 territories, you have 2 valleys which are very important. In Charente, it is the valley de la Tardoire. In Dordogne, it is the valley de la Vézère, which has been classified by the UNESCO and so on. In the valley de la Tardoire, on a territory which is more or less 1,000 square meters, you have more Mousterian sites where it has been discovered Neanderthal remains than in Dordogne. But in the Tardoire Valley, and there are 100 kilometers far, the distance between the 2 valleys is no more than 100 kilometers. So in the Charente, in the Tardoire Valley, you have no Neanderthal burials. And in Dordogne, you have 11 of them. In the Tardoire Valley, you have many sites where Neanderthal have been scavenged by carnivores like hyena. In Dordogne, you have not. I don't know why. I am working on it, but I don't know why.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't see any hand in the air.
Thank you very much for that talk. It's really not my field, so but it strikes me as pretty sad and shocking that the situation in the dating, or the documentation and dating of the French archaeological finding is so low and so poor, and it also doesn't make much sense to kind of do on the one side, climate, to try to understand climate and how it impacts civilization without studying the civilization's past. So I'm kind of very surprised about that. Is there any way out? I mean, is there kind of activity on the European Union level, or is there activity on the private donor level? Or I mean, on the national level, you have probably tried everything and it doesn't work. So
okay. At the European level, there are clearly very important differences between the European countries, considering that. In Belgium, it is clearly more simple because perhaps in Belgium there were an history where it is possible to do this kind of analysis because people in the museum are interested. There are people who have PhDs. You have a curator at the Institut Royal des Sciences Naturelles de Belgique. The chief curator is a paleoanthropologist. There is no curator in France who is a paleoanthropologist. And you have no curator in the archaeological service who is a paleoanthropologist. So for the European, I don't know. You have a huge, for private, no, not in France. And if it was possible, I don't think that the French Ministry of Culture would appreciate this, because we are in a country which has a very, and it is great, a very important feeling of what is supposed to be done on this kind of national patrimony. But I think that we have to organize something. Nowadays, we have to organize something because the situation has clearly changed since, I would say, the beginning of, since 2010 and even more recently. And we are discussing with Thibaut of the idea to organize a specific workshop or symposium like yours, where we'll try to invite the main responsible of the French Ministry of Culture, of the different archaeological services, the main curators of the museum where you have important prehistoric collections which are stored, and scientific, which will present them what we're able to do, how we're able to do the things, what is the size of the samples, what are the results, what could be the result, what could be the difficulty, because there is still something which is missing to our colleagues who are working in museum and so on. It is the capacity to follow the advance of our scientific fields. And for sure, when you go there and you discuss with them to say, okay, I want to do sample, or I want to sample a bone, they are still thinking that you will take a 2 cube centimeters sample. And in fact, no, it is less than a 1 cube millimeter sample. But even if it is 1 cube millimeter sample, it could be difficult, and it will be necessary to discuss during 6 months with them, at least. But it is, in part, it is normal, because their business, it is to protect the pieces and the collection. If you want to sample, you destroy something.
I think Edouard has a question as well, or a comment.
Just while listening to you, I mean, I have a comment that may be completely irrelevant, but I think there may be some, I mean, the reason why it's so different between France and the other countries is maybe linked to the history of the publication mode and dissemination of the data that has been traditionally used by prehistorians and archaeologists. And this, for example, I participated to the 1986 in Liège, a meeting about Neanderthal man.
I was there.
Maybe you were there.
As a PhD student.
Okay. And for the last 30 years, I mean, even more, I mean, 40 years, I was amazed that traditionally all the publications were in monography that were about a few, almost a meter. I remember that I participated, for example, to the Zafaraya monography, and it's sitting on my desk just to put my computer on it. And in the other countries, in Europe especially, maybe the prehistorians have been better in completely switching gears and changing their mode of publication by going into the normal, I would say, peer review literature with shorter articles, with more, impact and more visibility to the international. And I think that France has been a bit behind that. I mean, it is changing, but I think that there may be also some. Is there any link to this change? So this is difference, and is the difference that I perceive real or not?
No, it's real. Yeah, you're right. To publish a monograph for a prehistorian, a culturalist prehistorian, is still more important than to publish 2 or 3 papers in international review, which will be more easy to access for the international community. And it is also perhaps a consequences to the fact that the French Ministry of Culture is still giving money to support publication like les bulletins de la Société préhistorique française, Paléo, which are related for Paléo to museum. And when you have access to the collection of the Musée National de Préhistoire, you must publish in Paléo, which is normal, and so on. So no, you're right. But for the paleoanthropology community in France, now we are publishing a lot in international review. So it is maybe not so, I don't know. But for sure, I want to be successful in my life to produce a monograph of Le Moustietou and Rigourdou.
We still have a bit of time, and I would maybe ask you to comment. We had the talk by Anna yesterday about sediment DNA. So having explained, with your presentation, you explained the difficulty to access the human remains. So I wanted to hear your view about studying the sediment, and how do you think this is actually going to help us to understand better about dynamics of human and faunal population, and going a bit around the problem of accessing the human remains directly.
Yeah, you're right, Thibaut. It is something which is very challenging, and it will change. It is something which is very important. There are sites like Comgrenal with excavating where you have samples which are isolated for environmental DNA and so on. I think that it is a collaboration with Vivian Sloan. I think that we need to have more experimental study of how the ancient DNA is moving within sediment. Here you have a view of Les Pradelles. Okay. You can see what is the sedimentation of Les Pradelles. block of limestone related to the collapse of the wall and the roof of the cave, plus some clayey sediments, the black one, related to a river which is just on the border of the site. We don't know if this fine sediment is related to the Mousterian functioning of the river or is more recent. I have tried at the beginning with Eva Maria Gegel, and maybe it was too early to try to get ancient DNA from Neanderthal remains discovered at Les Pradelles, and there was no DNA preserved. Past year, we went back to the site to do OSL sampling. So we have decided to take some sediment from this lithofacies where we have the Neanderthal remains, the same one which have been tested for ancient DNA at the beginning of 2000. And I have been very surprised because for Matthias Meyer from the Max Planck Institute, we have lot of Neanderthal DNA. I don't understand how it is possible to have lot of Neanderthal DNA in a site where the sediment has been washed during more than 55,000 years by the river, by the snow, by the rain, and so on. But it is like this. So we need to do things, for sure. We need to do experimentation on how the DNA of organisms could move within the sediment and to work on it, for sure.
Okay, thank you. One last question in the audience? No? Okay. So
Thank you very much.
Thank Bruno again for this exciting talk. Thank you.